Hey guys, welcome to How to Do Computers. I'm Mike, and today we're going to be virtualizing pfSense to create an internal network in ProxMox. This tutorial is aimed at showing you how to create an internal pfSense firewall for running virtual machines on a virtual-only network using only one onboard Ethernet interface. A big disclaimer here, it isn't recommended to virtualize pfSense at all, and definitely not in production as it consolidates a server and your firewall to a single point of hardware failure. There are also security implications as pfSense and ProxMox will be operating on the same Ethernet interface, which will expose ProxMox to whatever is upstream of that LAN connection. If, for instance, you have just a modem with no additional router or firewall, this means that your ProxMox machine will be exposed to the internet unprotected and may become vulnerable to attack. But with proper security protocols, risk can be minimized. I will still encourage having at least another router or firewall upstream of your ProxMox server if you choose to run this configuration. So there are many reasons you might want to do this, whether it's that you don't have your own router, perhaps you share with family or roommates, but you want to be able to play with router and firewall configurations without creating any downtime for anyone, or perhaps you want to put it on a portable home lab like we discussed in the home lab on a slab video. You might be taking it to other networks that aren't yours. Again, keep in mind, try to avoid using this on public networks. Or, like in my case, maybe you want some extra isolation for the machines running in your lab, say to create an environment for recording YouTube videos without exposing too much of your own personal environment. Whatever your reason, today I'll show you the steps on how to set this up. So we have our ProxMox web interface pulled up and logged into. Before we set this up, you'll want to have a virtual machine already installed to be used to configure pfSense after you get it set up. We have an instance of Windows ready for that. That will be the JMP-TMP machine here, and we'll leave it shut down for now. Also, if you don't already have it installed, we will need to install the ifupdown2 package in order to be able to manage and restart our network from this interface. So let's go up to our node, and then to shell, and then we'll type in the following command. apt install ifupdown2. I already have it installed, so it didn't install anything for me, but ProxMox doesn't ship with this by default, so you'll likely need to install it. Next, we'll need to create a virtual network interface to act as our LAN interface. So go to the Network tab under System, and then click Create. We will choose a Linux bridge. We'll leave the name as VMBR1, make sure that Auto Start is selected, leave everything else blank, and then click Create. Now up top, click Apply Configuration, hit Yes, and then allow the network to reload. Now that we've created and made active our new Linux bridge, we'll want to go ahead and create a virtual machine for pfSense. So go up to the top right, click Create VM. We'll leave the VM ID as 102, and I'll call it pfSense. Make sure to check Advanced, and then we want this to start at boot. And since this is arguably the most important virtual machine on our server, we want the startup order to be 1. Hit Next, select the pfSense ISO, next again, next again. We can set the disk size to 12 gigabytes. Hit Next. It should perform fine with 1 core, so we'll click Next again, and 2 gigs of RAM should be plenty. Since this device is going to be our firewall, we will deselect the firewall checkbox, leave the bridge as VMBR0, hit Next. Make sure that we're not starting the device after it's created, and then hit Finish. Once the VM has created, we'll want to go here to our pfSense VM, and then go to the Hardware tab, and then we'll want to add our additional network interface. Go to Add, Network Device, and then under Bridge, select VMBR1, and again, deselect Firewall, and hit Add. Now we can go ahead and go to the console, and start the machine. Go ahead and proceed with installing pfSense normally. I'll link my video below where I go more in depth on the install procedure, but for now we're just going to quickly click through the menu options. Once the installation is finished and you've rebooted, you'll arrive at the option to configure the Wan and Lan ports. You can use a similar trick to the one that I used in the previous pfSense video to make sure that you're selecting the right ones by going down to the Hardware tab, then select a bridge. Here I'll select VMBR0, click Disconnect, OK, select it again, and then reconnect it. Now if you go back to the console, you can see that the link state changed on the VTnet 0 interface, which means that the VTnet 0 interface correlates with the VMBR 0 bridge, which will be our WAN interface. So here we'll enter VTnet 0, hit enter, and then for our LAN, we'll enter VTnet 1. Y to proceed. If everything goes correctly, you should receive a WAN IP from your upstream internet source. In my case, it's receiving a DHCP address from the firewall in my server rack, and the LAN address is the default 192.168.1.1 with a /24 CIDR block. So now we can connect a virtual machine to pfSense. To do that, you'll go to your virtual machine, and then to the Hardware tab, and then under Network Device, you'll edit, and then change the bridge to VMBR1, and hit OK. If the machine is already running, you'll want to give it a restart. Ours isn't, so we'll go ahead and start it up, and then go to the console. So now our Windows machine is booted up and logged in. It should recognize the new network. We'll hit yes to make ourselves discoverable. Close out the server manager and then open our web browser. And then you'll navigate to the pfSense default IP address, which is 192.168.1.1. We'll ignore the certificate warning, go to advanced, and hit continue. We'll log in with the default username of admin and password of pfSense. And once that's all set up and you're logged in, from here you should be able to configure pfSense just like you would an install on a physical machine. And don't forget, when you're creating a new VM and you want it to be behind the firewall, to select the appropriate bridge during setup. You'll also need to do this for any existing VMs that you want to be behind the firewall as well, by going to the virtual machine, to the Hardware tab, and then changing the network device like we did with this machine here. So it looks like pfSense is up and running on our ProxMox install, and I believe that about wraps it up for this one. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues, let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video.